Hello and welcome to the session. Now, apart from handling different types of files, we will also see that how to interact with different databases. Now, why we need database and what are the things involved in database? So let's explore. All right. So why and how? Now, why? So the question depends on your business requirement as usual. Uh, but for a white box testing or even a gray box testing scenario, what we want is, let's say we want to do some action from the user. Let's say we do a login, search, checkout and payment, but then at the same time, apart from verifying the logs, we would also want to check what is there in the underlying database. Or before running the automation itself, we would want that certain database flags are set or not, and multiple things. So that is why database testing is important for end-to-end automation. Now, how it can be done? So there are different set of databases used in market for different project requirement. So SQLite is being very simple and lightweight. We have traditional MySQL and PostgresDB. Now we also have Microsoft SQL, Amazon Redshift, Oracle database connection, MongoDB, MariaDB, and there are multiple types of databases. So out of this, we will see these three types of databases, which is very simple and easy to understand. Once you know bit of this, then other things are bit easy. Now, testing using programming. So one simple scenario, what I will tell you is you do a login, then in the database, for that particular login database, you verify that user has logged in. You can check the particular timing and user credentials and whatnot. User has searched, so some particular entry will be made in some search related database that user has searched for some e-commerce item, for example shoes, shirts, whatever. And when user does a payment, then payment related information, let's say card number and uh, whether the transaction was successful or not, payment was actually delivered or not, so those kind of things. So that is what is one example. Now to actually make a database connection programmatically using Java, we have different open source jar files, like a third party jar file. So we will to import those, and we will have to make a connection to the required database, and we have to raise the particular query, select, update, delete, insert, and those. So that all we will see one by one. So we will start with SQLite. So SQLite is very lightweight database. You can get more information about what is SQLite and other things from their official website. So this is my, I have locally one database called as Tony.db, and I'm already on this database on this path. So what I will do, if I want to do it manually, so what I will do, I will go to that folder. I will say SQLite this thing, right? So now I'm inside the database, and after that I will say dot table. So it will give me the tables available in the that particular database. So we have a table called as employee, and what I'll do, I will raise a select query. Okay, so now if you see, that particular employee database has 3 rows of data and 4 columns. This is just for a starter, and actual scenario will be very, very different. Now that's what is here. So how to, let's do step by step. So database requirements, scope and benefits of database automation. So we have seen that. Now example for SQL database. So what we have to do in certain steps. So first is we need to make the database connection. So to make a database connection for SQLite, first we will need where the database is available. So this is kind of a database URL. So this is the format in which you will have to specify where the database is uh, available. Now, since for SQLite it is just a .db file, so it is you need to just specify the .db file path here. Okay. Now we have certain classes available for at our disposal. So connection is one class which is there in the java.sql package, which is ready-made available in core Java. So we need to also have this SQLite JDBC library available. It's a jar file. You'll have to download from Maven repository and then start using it. So driver manager get connection to this particular DB URL. So what will happen is your driver manager will connect to this particular database. Okay, remember it is just a connection. Now step 2, you have to mention what query you want to use. Let's say Same thing what I've done it from the DOS prompt. So select star from employee, and now you have to make a prepared statement. Now prepared statement is one of the way to uh, execute a query into a database, just like what we have done from the command prompt. And now make prepared statement with a particular query. So here it depends, you can use select query or insert or update or different variety of queries. So how do you run it? So basically prepared statement dot execute query. Now this is where it will actually execute the query, run the query and capture the output. Now once you get the output, this particular output, then that will be captured in something called as result set. So result set is again a class which is available also here, java.sql package, and that package will that result set will give you the records which were available as the output of this execute statement or the select query. Okay, so now fifth step is optional. To result set, get result set metadata to get the column names. So we already know the column names. So these are the column names: employee ID, employee name, salary, and gender. Okay, so this is for our information. If some database column is unknown to you, this is how you can get it. So that's why this is optional step. Now what I'm dumping the values received from the database as a part of select query. So how we can do is basically this result set has something called as an iterator. It's an extension of iterator, and for number of rows you will have to iterate, and you will have to get a particular column name that get string. So I know that employee ID is a type of integer, employee name is string, salary is integer, and gender is a string. So this depends on what is the type of column it is. So if you see dot get, so get array get, so there are different types of columns which you can extract the information from. Okay, and yeah, so I'm just printing it for now, and lastly you'll have to close the connection. Now this is the pattern: opening the connecting the database, preparing a statement, executing the query, getting the result set, processing the result set like you are printing it, and closing the database. This is a very common pattern we need to follow for all database related automation, right? So now you can catch some exception. So if you want, you can catch the exception as per requirement, or you can simply say throws exception here also, anything is fine. Now let's just run it and see whatever we got here, the same should be available in the output, right? So now the program is run, and now you will get the output here. So this is how, so this output is printed here in the result set iteration. So this is how we can do the database handling for Sqlite. Now Sqlite, as I said, is a very lightweight database, and for huge database requirements or performance aspects and all, Sqlite is not preferred. So we will go for MySQL. MySQL is again very traditional database, and there are hundreds of thousands of projects which are already using MySQL. So let us see MySQL database handling. So we for this we need separate jar. So if you see this MySQL connector Java 8.0.21, so this is available in Maven repository. You can just go here and download the jar file and import this into your project. Or if it is a Maven project, you just have to add this dependency. Now the pattern remains the same. So just for information, so I have a dockerized MySQL running here. If you see MySQL version 8, which is almost the latest one, and I'm using, instead of running it as a Windows app, I'm using it from the Docker. So not much difference. So I just have a database to connect with and do some operation. Now this is one tool, dbeaver. You can use any workbench or any kind of a tool. So this will show me like how many databases are present and how many tables are present. So for this database, I have employee table, and I have emp detail employee database and emp detail table available wherein I have certain data. So what I'm doing, select star from employee.emp detail. So if I do this, yeah, so now this is the 4 rows of data which is present in the MySQL database. So it is running and we can see the output here. Now same thing I want to do programmatically. So the pattern remains the same. Uh, so you need to know the host and the port of the database to which you are trying to connect, the database name, then this public key option. So this public key option and SSL option may vary as per your project requirement. If it is obviously, if it is a secure database connection and if it is proprietary to your company and all, so these options you will have to use as per your requirement. For now, this is a very simple test case, simple case. So public key option I'm setting as true and SSL I'm setting as false. My username password is root and my password. Now, so as we made a DB URL for SQLite, so same thing we will do it for MySQL. So this is the actual URL you should be preparing, but I've divided it separately so that for easy understanding. So I need to provide the host, port, database name, public key option, and SSL option. So this is how I have broken it down into small pieces. Okay, now recently there's a change that we need to use this class name exactly for MySQL database connection. This is as per the latest Java implementation dependent, and we need to provide the username password here in the get connection. In the driver manager get connection call, we need to provide the credentials in this manner. Right. So now this will actually make a connection to the database. Step 1. Step 2 onwards, almost the same. We have to prepare the SQL query. So select star from employee.emp detail. Same thing what we have seen here. Select star from database name dot uh, uh, the database name dot db name, table name. Yeah. Right. So now prepared statement, execute query if you want to get the column names, and again in the result set iterator you can iterate through each uh, individual record and you can print it or you can process it further. Of course you need to close the connection. Right, so let's just run it once. Okay, so there are 4 records and this table column. So same thing as we have seen here, 4 records and these columns. Now there are some programmatically, if you are doing using Java, so sometimes you'll get no suitable driver found exception. So that's what, so you need to use the correct jar file. So you can go to this location, download that jar file. You can go for the latest stable version, or if it's a Maven project, you just have to use this dependency. Now another thing is com.mysql.jdbc driver. So this driver name was supposed to be used in earlier implementation. So here, as I was telling, the if you use the older name, this one, then that is deprecated. So you have to use the latest name, which is provided by the latest implementation here. And there can be multiple other issues also, so which you will have to resolve one by one. Okay, but for very simple, this is very simple test, very simple scenario. This is more than sufficient. Now also let us see PostgreSQL. This is also one very popular database used in multiple projects. This has a lot of other advantages like bit stability and performance aspects and all. And of course it is freely available, so you can use it. Now again the same thing, so we have to download the jar file for which is compatible for PostgreSQL. So you can download it from here, or you can insert this dependency. You can use any latest stable version, whichever is suitable, whichever works for your particular database. So the patterns remains the same. So I have to provide the host, port, database name, username, and password. That's sufficient. So if you see the finally the database URL will be like this. Okay, so here local host or whatever host, port, and the database name. Okay, just for information, I am running a Dockerized PostgreSQL here. So anything is fine. And if you see here, using this workbench kind of a tool, I am connected to that particular uh, PostgreSQL database. And in Postgres, we have something called as a schema. So it's equivalent to a database table only, but then yeah, we have a schema. So I have this table called as marketing employee detail. And if I run a particular query, then I will get this information. So for sake, what I'm doing, I'm saving this. Right. So now let us do once again. Right. So first employee ID is 80. Okay. Now, so this is how you do using any tool or a workbench or anything. Now let's do it programmatically. So the pattern remains the same. So host, port, database, username, password, and this is the driver you need to use. org.postgresql.driver. Right. So the way to uh, pass on the username password is in the get connection call only. Okay. Now the select statement, select query. So select star from schema name dot table name. Okay. EMP detail is the schema name. EMP detail is the schema name and dot table name. So we are connected to this database already, employee database, and we are running the query for a particular schema dot the table name. Okay, rest of the things are same. Repeat statement, execute query. If you want to get the column names, and of course you iterate on the result set uh, values on the result set items, and you can print the output. Of course, you have to close the connection. Right. So let's just run it and see. Right. So yeah. So now I am getting this query. Let me just check once. Okay, so what I've done is I have added this row for PostgreSQL. So now there are 3 rows here, and one employee ID is 50. So let me just run it once again. So with the same query, select star from AMP detail dot marketing employee detail. Right. So with the same query, let's run it and let's verify the output here is matching with the output in the actual database. So output is 50, 200, 300. 50, 200, 300. Okay, so this is how you can connect with databases, and this is not for now is an example of just a select query, but you can have other type of query also. So very normal cases you have select query, update query, insert query. A delete query normally is not required, but it depends on the business requirement. Right. So let's continue our discussion for remaining topics in the subsequent session. Thank you.